to the American Council of Life Insurers and USAA for joining us today. It's because of their continued support of our military community that we're able to come together and have this meaningful conversation. And so, thank you all for being here today. Whether you're joining from home or work or maybe even a vacation, I'm really excited that you're here. This webinar is all about our service members and their military families. We're here to discuss financial readiness, your well-being, and your overall peace of mind. Today's session is going to feature this exceptional group of panelists who are joining me that are eager to share their insights and also answer your questions. Today, I encourage you to utilize the live chat that we have available. If our panelists are unable to get to those questions immediately, please don't worry. The Blue Star Families team and ACLI are here to respond directly and also to continue the conversation within the Blue Star neighborhood afterward. Additionally, I just want to take 1 minute to note PII. Please don't share any kind of personal identifying information within the chat. Keep your questions general and just make sure you adhere to our community guidelines. So with all that, I'd love to get started and introduce you to Andrew Remo. He is the Vice President of Retirement Security at ACLI, and he's going to facilitate this webinar. Thank you so much for being here today, Andrew.
Thank you, Sierra, and appreciate your coordinating and setting us up for today's conversation. My name is Andy Remo. Like you said, I'm Vice President of Retirement Security for the American Council of Life Insurers. In my role, I lead ACLI's advocacy mission, promoting policies that help people access the tools they need to save and ensure their savings last a lifetime. Retirement security is a priority to the life insurance industry, which is home to the nation's most trusted and iconic household financial protection brands. In fact, life insurers are responsible for $4.3 trillion in retirement savings for Americans. In just 5 years, the number of those aged 65 and older will be larger than the number of children in the United States. So the need for retirement security is growing, and it is important that we have discussions that help people and policymakers understand what we're all about. ACLI has worked alongside Blue Star Families over the years, advocating for retirement security policy that will better support military families. We monitor how retirement for military families is gauged in ACLI's quarterly financial resilience index, which I'll share more about in a moment. But first, let me introduce you to the speakers that are joining us on the screen today. First, Emily Bescher is the Senior Director of Research and Evaluation at Blue Star Families, where she leads strategic research initiatives to support military families. Her work includes leading the Applied Research and Evaluation team with signature initiatives like the annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey and building robust evaluation systems for community-based programs. Driven by a deep respect for military families, Emily has a proven track record of using data to inform action and drive meaningful change. And second, we have Josh Andrews, who is an advice director for USAA and a certified financial planning professional. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering from the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs and a master's degree in financial planning from Kansas State University. He ensures USAA is equipped to best serve our military members as they make decisions that impact their financial security. Josh served for 11 years on active duty in the U.S. Air Force and 9 in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and retired in June of 2020 after 20 years of service. So thank you very much for your service. I'm excited today for today's discussion, which we hope will provide information that empowers military families and service members with insights for a secure financial future, particularly when it comes to retirement planning, financial readiness, and long-term security generally. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to start to ask a question of Emily, just to talk a little bit more about our financial resilience index, which we conduct here at ACLI, and that index measures people's confidence to withstand economic pressures. In October of last year, ACLI found that middle-class families are most concerned about financial stress from a health event, that's 42%, an unexpected expense, 35%, and a serious decline in income, 32%. In general, the sources of financial stress from military families were similar to those for all middle class households. So, Emily, taking us a step further as a researcher with Blue Star families, can you set the stage for us? What does the data say as far as the biggest challenges families face, especially when it comes to military spouse employment and retirement savings?
It's a big topic, Drew. And I know we have a later question where I'll be digging more into military spouse unemployment specifically. But the big thing that I think is really important for everybody to know is that, military families, just like the rest of families in the United States, experience financial strain. But there are certain experiences in the military family lifestyle that really increase that financial strain. And one of those, as I think many people can already answer this, are the frequent moves. So frequent moves have a pretty negative financial impact on military families. And so what we find in our data is that almost 70% of families are reporting out-of-pocket expenses that are exceeding $500 when they're moving. And for a good portion of those, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars that are out of pocket. And then when you ask, okay, so, then what does that look like? How are you paying your bills, right? We have, over 40% of some of our families saying that they're using credit cards to cover their out-of-pocket PCS costs, and they're not able to pay off those balances in that same month. They're then carrying that debt forward for the rest of the year. And if you can think about then what is the long-term impact, this I think is again sort of how does that then impact retirement and savings? When we ask veteran families and families that are transitioning, how did your transition experience go? Where were you at in terms of financial preparedness? And so the guidance is that we really want people to be thinking about the transition into veteran status for years ahead of time. But what we're seeing is that it's often just a year or two ahead where people are starting to really think about this. And at that point, about 54% of families are saying that they have less than $5,000 in available savings for an emergency. These are folks that are getting ready to transition in the next year. And so, in our mind, from a Blue Star family's perspective, I connect these threads into a story, right? I'm picturing families that are impacted by frequent moves. They have out-of-pocket expenses that they are not able to pay off. That is then leading to a greater balance of debt that they are then carrying ahead. And this is then leading to a reduction in terms of the emergency savings that they then have available to them, which is then impacting them right up until the point of retirement. And so that is when I think about the picture of how all of these things connect. Without even getting to military spouse unemployment, we have a story here between frequent moves and the financial impact of that. And then I'll just throw in one more thing, housing. Housing is really, really big for military families, and we have about 70% of our family, we have a large portion of our families, around 37%, saying they can find housing within their basic allowance for housing. But that's down from 58% from 2020. So that's 60% of families saying I can't I cannot afford housing within the BAH. So add all of these things together, and it's leading to a lack of preparedness in terms of those emergency savings and then long-term financial impacts.
Thank you. Yeah, that seems overwhelming. Frequent moves, and just everyday life expenses. It could, seem like, well, I can't even put any more money aside for retirement. But, Josh, as an expert at USAA, I mean, what's your take when it comes to everyday planning, from just getting started to retiring from the military and or retiring from the workforce altogether? What are the biggest lessons learned there, for you and just the people that you consult with and talk with?
Yeah, definitely. And so everything that Emily, just put into perspective is feeds into that financial side of the equation, right? But even though it may be difficult at times, it still doesn't change those lessons learned and those things you need to do, right? And the biggest lesson learned is just not starting to save for retirement. Numerous studies have been done over the years the value of starting early and the value of compounding interest. And so, for example, let's say someone decides to start saving $500 per month for retirement. They earn a hypothetical 6% rate of return. And let's not count in taxes and all that stuff, right? Just for illustration purposes. How much will they have if they retire at age 65? Well, if they start at age 22, they'll have $1.12 million. If they start at age 42, they'll have $281,000. Big gap. And so that just highlights the importance of starting early, especially in those early years. And even through all the difficulties and the challenges that Emily talked about, that leads into the second lesson learned, and it's not starting, but for a different reason. And it's not starting because they don't feel they can save $500 per month, right? They're having trouble with military spouse unemployment or underemployment. They're having trouble with the PCS funds, and they're having trouble with debt payments as they are transitioning out of the military. And they're like, I just can't save $500 per month. USA believes in setting aside 10% of your income for retirement. But if you can't do 10%, do 1%. If 1% is too high, do $50. Start somewhere. It's better to start small than not start at all. And then as you get pay raises and promotions and maybe your financial situation improves and you become more financially secure, then you can increase and you can continue, to put more for retirement because it's a big goal and you need to focus on it. And I think the last thing is for those who are retiring out of the military. And the biggest lesson learned for those retiring out of the military, and we have to preach this story all over and over again because we really believe in it, and that's underestimating the value of the survivor benefit plan. All right, so for those who aren't familiar, right, the survivor benefit plan, if the military retiree dies, it allows a portion of the military retirement to pass on to their beneficiaries. And so the two questions that come up is, do I need the protection the survivor benefit plan affords? And if so, is survivor benefit plan the most cost-effective way to provide for that? And for most people, the answer is yes to both. Does the family need that military retirement income to provide for their standard of living if the military retiree dies? The answer is yes, right? For most people, they're like, I rely upon that. So they need it. And then you come to the side of the equation, is survivor benefit plan the most cost-effective way? And in almost all situations, when we do our analysis, it is, right? It is the most cost-effective situation. For example, I have some numbers here, right quick. So let's say a person is retiring and earns $2,700 per month in retirement pay, right? If they die and they choose that entire amount as their base amount, that means their survivors would get $1,485 per month for the rest of their life. So the question is, how much does it cost to provide that $1,485 per month for the rest of their life? Their survivor benefit plan premium would be $175.50 per month if the spouse is the beneficiary. If you were to replace that with a permanent life insurance type of product, right, which would be the equivalent, that's what you need for the average, and I just chose a 42-year-old man and average health, right? Your health and your age are going to vary those. Its cost would be $763 per month. And so you see the big benefit. So it's important for you to provide for your family after you die. And survivor benefit plan, USA believes, is one of the best ways to provide for that. Life insurance is there, and life insurance is extremely important. But let's use it for other purposes, not necessarily for this specific purpose. And there's pros and cons to every decision, and you need to weigh it with your own financials and your own health and your own needs. But in most cases, we always find that the survivor benefit plan is the way to go, and that's why we strongly support it.
Yeah, those are some great lessons. Particularly, I mean, I think it was Einstein that said the greatest force on the earth is the miracle of compound interest. And so just starting early, that's really what you can use to grow your nest egg. And it doesn't, start small, start what you can do, but start. That's just start. So that's great stuff. So my second question here is, there has been some changes in law over the last 5 years. There are these comprehensive retirement bills, pieces of legislation that passed up here in Washington, D.C. called the Secure Act or the Secure 2.0 Act, it really one provision should have at least a modest impact on inciting employers um, to enroll military spouses in their retirement benefit. They'll get a little bit of an extra tax credit to do that, and to make those savings vest immediately upon participating in the benefit. So that's sort of out there. But what has been done to address sort of challenges for military families? Josh, what are the biggest impacts of increased education, and access to financial protection products and services for young military families?
Yeah, so I think the biggest things, and this is what we're seeing, is actually increased financial security. Everything that it's kind of weird to have that conversation on increased financial security when you look at all the difficulties that Emily mentioned, which are 100% true. But even through those difficulties, we're seeing increased financial security. And so USAA did some internal studies on military members so we could understand what they're going through. And so there's a few things we found is that between 2019 and 2023, the average savings account balance for military members actually increased by 19%. So even though they're having difficulty, it's getting better. They have lower revolving credit. Emily mentioned from a PCS to PCS, they're having trouble paying it off. Well, they're having less trouble paying it off than they did. So things are getting better. At the end of 2023, only 37% of military members carrying a revolving balance more than 6 months or more. Contrast that to 2019, it was 45%, almost half of military members. And so that was a huge thing. But we're also seeing that financial security not stop at the parents. It's passing on to the children. And this is one that actually makes me the most excited, right? Because between 2020 and 2025, youth savings account balances for military children increased by 25%. When compared to civilian children, there's only increased 15%. So there's a 10 percentage points difference there. And so even with the challenges, right, we know our military members are resilient. We know they work hard. And even with those challenges, we're seeing them save more. We're seeing them pay off debt and carry less revolving credit. And we're seeing them teach that to their children, and their children are having higher balances than their civilian counterparts. So everything that Emily talked about is true, but the future is bright when you look at the trends. And I think all that goes back to all those educational things and all those regulation changes that are supporting military spouses that Emily can speak to wonderfully.
Yeah, it's great. And that, what you were just saying there brought to mind a interesting provision that was just in the recently passed Big Beautiful Bill Act that essentially creates, they're called Trump accounts, but they're essentially child savings accounts. So if you were to have a child, starting this year for the next 4 years and open up an account, which, the rules will have to be promulgated, but these accounts will be created probably within a year, and financial institutions will start offering them. If you have a child that's born, the government's going to match that account with $1,000 in seed money. So there you go, right there, starting from birth, and you can really enjoy the miracle of compound interest through the entirety of life. So that's I think was a little bit underreported just given the whole scope of the bill, but that is an interesting vehicle that folks can use to save, particularly for their kids, and get their kids on the right track right off the bat. So with that, Emily, what are the biggest trends for military spouse employment, and what does that mean for the future of retirement?
Oh, this is a passion project, I think, for our whole team. So every time I do one of these webinars, I will get reached out to by military spouses who are trying to enter the labor force. I guarantee you I will get reached. So if you're listening, find me on LinkedIn and message me because I'm open to it. Military spouses, on the whole, want to work and are looking for work for many of them. And so when we look at our data from year to year, It's about 23% of military spouses are unemployed, and that's higher than the national average, of course. And these are folks that are looking for work. They want to enter the labor force. And for many of them, about 77% of our military families are saying that two incomes are vital for their economic well-being of their family. So for 77% of these military families, they're saying it's not just a personal desire to work. It's I need and want to work in order to create that financial stability that Joshua was talking about. And so what happens is that for many of these spouses, it's really that story again of often moving is a big part of this. And so remote work can really help this. We have 35% of active duty spouses working entirely remotely. And for 16% of them, they're able to keep those remote jobs when they move. So that's a really exciting, I think, improvement that the last few years has brought us is this increase in remote work. But childcare issues really persist. And so for 64% of our military spouses, they're identifying that childcare is a barrier. And they're struggling to not only find childcare, but find affordable childcare. And so these relocations really compound the employment challenges. So 39% of our spouses are reporting that they need 3 or more months to find work. And so then and this all then has an implication on transitioning out of the military because we find that 30% of spouses cite employment, and 15% cite childcare as the reasons why they would consider leaving the military family lifestyle. So it's really important. I think people maybe see it as sort of disconnected or separate issues, but these family lifestyle issues are really critical. Similarly, we did a recent, we're in the middle of analyzing it, a military spouse employment longitudinal study where we followed a sample of military spouses across 3 years and we surveyed them 6 times. And we also interviewed over 100 military spouses to understand what was their journey through military spouse employment. And what I think is really interesting is that we see these sort of 7 stages of the military family lifestyle that intersects with military spouses and their journey to employment. So the first is sort of entering military life and getting into your first duty station. And this often triggers a career pause for military spouses. I think we even saw it in the chat. Many military spouses find that their active duty service member has a job that is uh, unpredictable, working lots of hours, and it's hard for them, especially if they have small children, to be able to then have a job outside of the home to be able to balance their service member schedule. So that's one step, right? The next step is then moving, PCSing, moving with their service member through their career. Then there's maybe having children and the parenting years, those small years with small kiddos and childcare expenses. It's like a whole nother thing, right? And that's not just as I just want to say childcare barriers. That's a society-wide problem. It's not just military families that are struggling with that. That is all families are struggling with at lack of access to affordable and consistent childcare. It just happens to impact military families as well. And so then we have deployments, we have solo parenting, we have unpaid labor. We have a lot of military spouses that are acting in caregiving roles, whether that is for their service member to some capacity, but also other family members. There might be exceptional children, there might be parents, there might be other family members. The Elizabeth Dole Center for Caregiving has done incredible work in this area, and military spouses often carry that burden. Um, or that privilege. And then often as children get older and service members are starting to kind of reach the next stages of their career, there might be some more opportunities for entering into remote work or entrepreneurship or getting certificates and advanced education that can really help military spouses navigate their employment trajectory. Um, we do have military spouses, though, that end up going through divorce, right? So I just want to really kind of highlight that we do have some military families that go through divorce, and those military spouses now have to deal with what that means in terms of the financial impacts on them. Um, And then finally, we have this transition and retirement. And for some of the military spouses that we interviewed, this is where the retirement piece came up. They said this is where they talked about discovering the long-term cost of years spent out of the labor force, and really struggling to try to restart their careers, and others remaining underemployed and having concern for retirement at this point. So I think that there's this whole trajectory here of like how military spouse unemployment impacts the financial stability of the family unit, both in the moment but long term. But then also as we reach transitioning out of military service, what does that mean for military spouses and their own retirement and the retirement of their family? They're worried, they're concerned, and so I think this is an incredibly important issue for all of us. And there's incredible work being done in this area in terms of licensure compacts between states, and amazing partners that do specific recruitment and targeted recruitment for military spouses. So there's a lot of wonderful energy in this space, but there's of course much to be done.
Great. Yeah. So I saw a question in the chat. Is there a minimum required to put towards the retirement account? The answer is no. There's no minimum. Whether that's a 401k or your TSP or even your own individual retirement account. It's not like you have to maintain some sort of minimum balance. You can just contribute what you can and let that grow. And the TSP and the 401k plans, typically folks are automatically enrolled now into these plans. And the typical default automatic enrollment rate is 3%, but you can always adjust that up, hopefully up or down, depending on your situation. Hopefully up as much as you can, because I should add that these vehicles have typically an employer matching contribution. So if you were to contribute 5% of your pay, or 3% of your pay, you would get matched dollar for dollar on that first 3%. And then if you were to do the next 2%, you'll get 50 cents on the dollar up to five. So basically, if you defer 5% of your pay, you'll get an employer matching contribution worth 4%, and that's free money. That's the most the best investment that you can make. So that's just sort of some typical plans designed. The plan design, the thrift savings plan is designed like that. So if you can, to maximize the employer contribution to your retirement account, I would suggest saving 5% of your pay to get that maximum employer match, which just compounds that earning for yourself. So with that, I will ask another question of Josh here. Basically, it's what can you do? Can you share more about the key things that military families should do, whether it's just getting started or nearing their retirement, just to make sure that they're prepared for the future?
Yeah, definitely. And so I kind of want to frame my answer to that question in a survey that was done. So the study was conducted by Empower, and there was two stats, and it said 55% of baby boomers feel prepared for retirement, which means 45% don't. But then they asked that same question to Gen Z, and only 32% said they feel comfortable, like they're taking the right steps. So whether you feel behind or you feel unprepared, the key is don't lose heart, right? You're in good company, right? You're not alone. So don't lose heart. But what can you do to maybe change the trajectory of your retirement thing? And so we're going to separate it into getting started and if for those who are nearing full retirement, right? Those who are getting started, don't wait to be debt free until you start saving for retirement. That's the number one thing that I hear. I want to focus on paying down debt. Well, paying down debt is key. Not adding to it is very important as well. But if you wait until you're debt free, you might not ever get started. And remember the conversation that I had and Andy had on the importance of compounding interest, especially in those early years. So don't wait to be debt free to start saving for retirement. Second thing is have a plan and stick to it, right? Do you have a plan to spend less than you earn, right? It's called a budget or a spending plan. We don't like it, but it works. You got to spend less than you earn. But then what part of that plan is your retirement plan, right? Do you have a goal in mind that you're trying to work for, and do you prioritize it? And part of that spending less than you earn and prioritizing your plan is the adage that we've all heard, and that's pay yourself first, right? Your retirement is the most important bill you pay each month. So pay yourself first, pay your future self, and take care of your future self in the present by saving for retirement. Then, if maybe you're not in the getting started spectrum, maybe you've got a little gray hair right on top of your head and you're like, I've done the thing and now I'm ready to start thinking about retirement. Well, what do I do? Well, now's the time to revisit your plan, right? Several years out before your intended retirement date, revisit your plan. How have you been, right? Are you on track? Are you behind? Um, Maybe the market hasn't performed as well as you expected, and you feel a little behind. You haven't earned as much growth in your account, or maybe you've hit a few um, employment bumps along the road, like Emily has talked about with military spouses, and it's put you behind just because you haven't been able to save as much. So now's the time to revisit your plan and potentially make up for lost time, right? We believe in contributing at least 10% of your income for retirement, but that doesn't mean you only have to contribute 10%. Maybe you need to do 15% to play catch up. Maybe now's the time in those last few years of employment that you actually find a side hustle, right? You find a second job utilizing your skills, and instead of using that extra income to increase lifestyle, you use it to make up for lost time in retirement savings, okay, to help you reach your goal. And then the last thing you want to do if you're nearing retirement is rethink your retirement date, right? I think if I could see your faces and I would ask for a show of hands of how many people want to work longer than they need to, there would not be a single hand raised, right? But if you rethink your retirement date and you delay it, it actually serves three really positive benefits, right? One is because now you're working longer and you have income, you delay tapping into your nest egg, which means your nest egg can last longer. Two is that by delaying your start date, you might also be able to delay taking Social Security and you allow it can continue to increase, right? Let's say you decided to take it at 62 because you want to retire. Well, maybe you can continue to let it grow and now your paycheck is bigger, which if your Social Security paycheck is bigger, then that's again less you have to take out of your retirement date. And the last thing is on timing is because what if you want to retire and the market's down? Well, now you're pulling out of your nest egg while the market is down. And so if you work longer, there may be opportunity for that market to recover and you're not pulling from your assets when they're down because of a down market. And the key thing is that that's a lot of decisions, right? And so sometimes you may want to just reach out to a financial advisor, right? Reach out to a qualified financial advisor that can look at this from an objective point of view, can show you the what ifs, and that gives you the education and the advice you need to make the best decision. USA has retirement income advisors who do this on a daily basis at usaa.com/retirement, and you can find them there. And essentially, it's your decision. Just make sure you're empowered with the education and the analysis behind it so that you know exactly what you need to do, because we all desire to have that wonderful retirement, which looks different for every one of us, but we all have that goal one day of when work is no longer required, it's optional, and we can ride off into the sunset doing whatever we wanted to do and the things we couldn't do while we were working. So those are the things I would look at for those getting started, and on the other end of the spectrum, those who are nearing retirement.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I mean, and that's really you bring up a great point about Social Security, where you can claim it early or you can claim it at 62, but if you delay claiming it, you'll get an 8% increase on your monthly payment, and that's a
Huge.
guaranteed return. There's not a better guaranteed return you're going to get, and you can delay it 8%. It'll increase every single year until age 70. So what many people do, I mean, if you're been saving and you're fortunate and you have investment growth over time and you have a significant pot of money, you can use your defined contribution savings or your retirement savings in your 401k account or in your TSP account or your IRA account. You can use those savings and not have to claim Social Security and let the Social Security increase and then delay that and maximize your payment. Because once you elect to get that Social Security payment, you're locked in, and that's going to be your income for the rest of your life. And then, your spouse will have a benefit as well. So, uh, Emily, do you have anything to add to to that?
No, I mean, I was gonna just share about in terms of like the amount of support that there is for military spouse employment. Like there are, so if you're a military spouse listening to this and you're like, this is really hard, I just want you to know that everybody knows that and everybody sees it. And there's a lot of work being done to support you. And so there are programs at the federal level that are specifically targeted towards supporting spouse employment. There are education programs, there are job portals. There are private sector. There are so many companies out there that have very specific hiring practices that want to hire and are seeking to hire military spouses, and they've made that commitment. We have our 4+1 commitment and our do your part commitment. These are states and employers that have made a commitment to military spouses and military families. So if you're looking for, who are those employers that are really looking out for military families, you can go find them on those links, and we can put those in the chat or as a resource to this webinar. And finally, if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, I just don't need, I'm not sure where to start. Find Blue Star Families on the neighborhood. We have a whole careers section of the neighborhood where if you just put the question out there, you will get support and guidance about where to start and where to go to next. And we have local chapters in many areas that can really provide some personal and professional networks and supports as you move into a new community. So I think that's the biggest message I just want to say is just as Josh was commenting that things are improving, there are visible signs that things are improving. I think I am a civilian supporter. And something I have observed is our military families are filled with pride and service. And often they are not squeaky wheels. And so what I want to say is don't feel like you have to be silent. Please speak up. Put your voice out there. Say, hey, I'm looking for a professional connection. Reach out to our chapters, reach out on the neighborhood, reach out to hiring our heroes, reach out to Drew and Josh and Sierra. Like we're here. We want to support all of you, right? So just speak out, speak up, ask for questions. There are resources here, and we're here to support you.
Great, Josh. Any closing thoughts?
No, I just think what Emily said, I have heard especially in the last 5 to 10 years, so many companies are seeking out military spouses. And the reason is because I have yet to meet a military spouse who is not a hard worker, who is not good at their job, and who the employer is sad when they have to PCS. Right? I mean, I haven't yet. And so the opportunities are out there, and the more we support each other, the more those opportunities are presented in front of the right person. And then we continue to increase the financial security of the military community.
Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate that. As a military spouse myself, my husband has been in for about 18 and a half years. And I can just say, honestly, it has changed so much. Starting out in his career and my career, like we have come so far. And I'm really grateful for the work, that companies like ACLI and USAA and Blue Star Families, of course, that are working to make things better for military families because I've seen it just over the course of, my career journey. And so thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for the time that you've taken today to be with us and answer our questions. I do know that we had a couple in the chat. So if we can just spend a few minutes addressing those, I'd really appreciate it. One of them was actually, oh, sorry, about like shopping for a retirement home and using it as like a vacation rental, maybe finishing out their basement or something like that. They wondered if you had any information or support on how to kind of um that, I guess, a financial opportunity, not necessarily relying on that for paying all of their bills, but just as a support once retirement comes.
Yeah, so I think that is definitely an opportunity. You have to have the right home in the right area, and that's where on USA.com/advice, if you look under the home tab, we have a lot of articles on being a landlord. And I think as you go into that decision, a lot of times we focus on, well, I can get this money, but also focus on the risk, right? What additional insurance might I require? If I go without a tenant, well, do I buy a bigger home that I maybe can't afford without? Well, now what if I don't have a tenant and now I put myself in danger of not being able to afford my mortgage? What happens, what extra liability insurance do I need to carry because I have a tenant in my home? And I think all those are questions that you need to research beforehand before making that decision. And so while if it's a space you're not using and it works out good and it's an area you want to live, I think it is a wonderful opportunity. You just need to go into that opportunity having all your ducks in a row and everything analyzed. Because tenants are going to treat your home a little worse than you do. And so there's going to be additional maintenance costs to account for. And as long as you've done that full analysis, then you're ready to make your decision.
Thanks so much, Josh. We had another question from Susan in the comments about Social Security, and she was wondering, is the earliest that you can claim it 62, but you have to take it by 70?
Yes, that's correct. There's no benefit to delaying beyond 70. It maxes your monthly payment maxes out at age 70.
Great. I think that covers all of the questions. If anybody has anything else, please feel free to share it in the chat. Um, oh, from Amy, where can we find the data that Josh referenced? I believe Josh said that it wasn't made public yet, correct?
So it is publicly releasable as we release it, but it's not like a study that I know of that's just been released to share about. I'm going to reach out to our PR comms person who ran the study and find out in what formats we can actually release it. And then if I am able to release the full study, in a format, then I will release it to Blue Star families who can attach it at the right time. I just need to get their permission first.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Um, Jacqueline is asking if you can collect VA disability and Social Security at the same time. Thanks, Amy.
Yes, yes, you can. Yes.
Okay, great. And
Simple answer. Yes.
yeah, I love simple answers, right? That's awesome. Do you need a full emergency fund before saving for retirement? I assume the answer is no, but
The answer is no, right? That goes back to the thoughts of, do I need to be debt free before saving for retirement? If we wait till we have a full emergency fund, we may never get started. But I caveat that by saying it is important to have a small emergency fund, maybe $1,000, $2,000 to help you get over some hurdles or some bumps in the road. Because the last thing you want to do is put money aside in a retirement plan. It's locked up, and now if you pull it out, you may have to pay some penalties because you need it. So have a small emergency fund and then multitask. Save for retirement, pay down debt, build your emergency fund, and you'll get there over time. But just start.
definitely just start. Um, if I'm retiring from the military, should I take the BRS lump sum option?
All right, so that's a good one. So for those who aren't familiar, the BRS lump sum option allows you to take either 25 or 50% of the value of your military retirement upfront, and then they reduce your military retirement. The thing is that there's a discount rate attached to it, which is fairly high. So essentially, if you take the lump sum, you're giving up money over time. So you get more money through the stream of payments of just taking your military retirement. So you go into that decision knowing if I take the lump sum, I'm losing money over time. And so historically, you don't want to lose money, so it's better to take the stream of payments and just take your military retirement every month. But there may be some situations where the BRS lump sum option is available. Let's say you're starting a business, and a lot of veterans and military spouses are very entrepreneurial minded. Let's say you're starting a business, and that can be an influx of cash that could help you start your business to provide for your income. Let's say you ran into some difficulties and now you're behind on your mortgage and you need $40,000, $50,000 to get whole on your mortgage, or they're going to foreclose. Well, your monthly retirement income is not going to do that. And so you need that cash up front, and it helps you keep your home, helps to keep a roof over your family's head. So while there are some situations where the BRS lump sum option could be beneficial to you, you make that decision knowing you're giving up money over time, but you're doing it for a specific purpose.
So many variables to consider. Thank you for that,
There
Josh.
are, there are.
Well, I really appreciate you all being here today. Emily, Andrew, Joshua, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our attendees. I'll make sure that any resources shared are shared in the neighborhood for you after this. And we will also get the recording out within the next couple of days. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks. Bye.